Hey, welcome to Life After Nursing School. I'm your host, Caroline Dana, aka Nurse Coach Caroline, and I'm here to help you, the new nurse, thrive in your career. As a former nurse recruiter, nurse manager, and now your personal new nurse career coach, I'm obsessed with making sure you don't just survive your first couple of years at the bedside. I want you to absolutely rock them. From the challenges to the triumphs, I'll be right here with you, giving you the real-world advice and support that you need to shine. Whether you're in nursing school getting ready for life after, or you're already out there in nurse life feeling overwhelmed or even questioning your confidence, I've got your back. I'll be sharing tips, tricks, resources, and strategies that are just for you. We'll dive into everything from landing that dream nursing job to slaying imposter syndrome, and most importantly, how to keep that spark alive and stay the vibrant and amazing nurse that you are. So if you're ready to tackle the things nursing school did not cover, like how to build a career, trust yourself, and keep your passion strong, then get comfortable because we are about to dive in and make nurse life the best life. All right, today's topic is about how to handle a preceptor that may not be the right fit for you and your learning needs. Unfortunately, this can happen, and having a preceptor that is conducive to learning is so important, especially in your first nursing job. This is where you lay the foundational bricks to your nursing practice. We're going to talk about a typical orientation structure, some preceptor red flags, how you can address your concerns with your manager and get the most out of your orientation. But before we jump in, if you could be so kind as to leave a rating or a review, I would be so grateful. It helps me know that these topics are landing with you, resonating, and hopefully adding value to your life after nursing school. At this time, I have 16 ratings on Spotify, but I know most of my listeners are on Apple Podcasts, and I only have about 7 ratings here. So please take a moment and share your love for the show. Okay, let's do this. Let's talk about what a typical orientation looks like for a new nurse. Most new grad nurses are given anywhere from 8 to 16 weeks of orientation. Personally, I recommend at least 12 weeks, but I know not every hospital offers that long of a duration. And honestly, if it's anything less than 12 weeks, that's truly a shame. During your orientation, you'll usually be paired with a primary preceptor. This is the nurse that you'll be spending the majority of your time with and learning the most from. You might also work with a second or third preceptor here and there. Typically, this is just because of scheduling issues and maybe to make sure that you meet your hours if your primary nurse is off for whatever reason. Your primary preceptor plays a huge role in your success, so it's important that they foster a supportive learning environment. They'll be the one truly showing you the ropes. Okay, so throughout these weeks, you'll also have regular check-ins with your unit manager, your residency program director, if you're part of a nurse residency program, and or a nurse educator. Your preceptor will likely attend these meetings too, and these check-ins are where you talk about your progress. You identify any obstacles that you're trying to overcome, and you work through learning challenges. You'll also share how much of the assignment that you're handling independently. For example, if the day shift on your unit typically cares for 5 patients each, you'll update the group during these check-ins on how many patients you're currently managing on your own. You'll usually start with 1 patient and slowly build up until you can handle the full assignment. Most units have timelines for when you should be at certain points. So for example, like taking half of the assignment or managing all the patients independently. If you're not on track with those milestones, it's critical to figure out why and address it early. I know when I was manager and we had new grad nurses on our unit, many times if a new grad nurse was behind sort of the schedule in their progression or kind of behind where they should be, many times it was because they were out sick the week before, or maybe they had a prior engagement when they took the job and couldn't work a certain week. And many times that was really why. Other times were just learning issues and obstacles that maybe they didn't foresee that we had to really hone in on and find a way to support the new grad into overcoming those obstacles to get back on track to where they are or where they should be. Now, this episode is going to focus on your relationship with your primary preceptor. First, it's important to understand that precepting is a big added responsibility for a staff nurse. Some preceptors might get a couple of extra dollars an hour to precept, but it's usually not a huge amount and certainly not enough to make it financially enticing. Good preceptors often spend more time teaching and guiding than working independently, and that can be exhausting over time. Not everyone loves precepting or has a natural talent for teaching. Sometimes less than ideal preceptors end up in the role simply because the unit has run out of other options. When I was a manager on a high turnover unit, we hired a lot of new grads and we also struggled to have enough preceptors available at times. Our best teachers were in high demand and sometimes needed a break from taking on another new grad or another learner. So keep this in mind. Your preceptor may not be the ideal choice for the role and they might not have the most effective teaching style. Or on the flip side, they might be an excellent teacher who's just feeling burnt out from doing it so often. Either way, it helps to get a sense of your preceptor's background and perspective. Understanding where they're coming from can give you a valuable insight into how to approach the partnership. And while we're focusing on your relationship with your primary preceptor in this episode, you'll also work with, again, secondary preceptors or stand-in staff members from time to time. Their workflow, pace, and teaching style will likely be very different from what you're used to with your primary preceptor. But my advice is to be open to these different ways of working. You might even pick up a technique or habit that fits your own nursing workflow better. Okay, so the first couple of weeks on the unit are an adjustment period, and this applies to both you and your preceptor. You're learning how they organize their day, how they give report, how they handle patient care, and how they operate overall. They're also learning about you, how you process information, how you perform skills, and how you respond to feedback. If you're unsure whether your preceptor is a good match, my suggestion is give it time and do this before deciding the fit isn't working. Give yourself a few weeks to adapt to them and for them to adapt to you. This is one of the biggest learning curves that you'll face in nursing, and switching preceptors too quickly might set you back if the real challenge is just adjusting and not necessarily a mismatch. Along with giving it time, communicate your needs early. Your preceptor can't give you the teaching style that you prefer if you don't share what that teaching style looks like. For example, if you learn best with step-by-step breakdowns, you might say, "It helps me if you talk through the assessment out loud before I try it on my own." If you need extra time to process a new skill before moving on, let them know and say something like this: "I'd like a bit more time practicing central line dressing changes before I do them independently." Notice how these are specific requests. They're much more effective than vague statements like, "I need more help," or "I need more time." I also recommend reflecting after each shift. Ask yourself, what went well? What could have gone better? Then set an intention for your next shift and share it with your preceptor. For example, I reflected on our last shift together and I realized I am not comfortable with discharge instructions. Today, I'd like to review a few and try giving discharge instructions to one or two patients. Being proactive about your growth areas helps your preceptor look for opportunities to support you. And remember, if they don't know what you want to work on, they can't help you focus your attention in those areas. Now, let's talk about some red flags that you might notice with the preceptor. This might help you determine if you just are in a period of adjusting to each other or if in fact it is a mismatch. I'm going to run through these quickly and think of it as like a mental checklist. Okay. They give you minimal guidance or instruction and they just expect you to figure it out. They don't explain their clinical reasoning or offer constructive feedback. They respond to your questions with sarcasm, frustration, or irritation. They make you feel embarrassed or even afraid to ask questions. They show little interest in your learning or progress. They don't set goals with you or check in during the shift. You see them demonstrate unsafe or inconsistent clinical practices. They discourage following policies or evidence-based care. They constantly compare you to other students or nurses. They use a negative tone, gossip, or create a toxic environment. They refuse to adapt to your learning style or needs. And finally, you leave each shift feeling anxious, defeated, or emotionally drained. If you're mentally checking off several of these, that's your sign to pause and reflect. These behaviors are not just tough love or a part of the learning curve. They're signs that the learning environment may be harmful. You deserve to be supported, respected, and set up for success. And if these red flags are present, it's time to advocate for yourself and seek support from your manager, educator, or residency coordinator. In these situations, I do have a few pieces of advice. First, stay professional and self aware, even if inside you want to scream or cry. Keep your tone respectful and solution focused, even if your preceptor's style is abrasive. Second, be mindful about where you vent. Don't share your frustrations with the entire unit. Instead, confide in a trusted mentor, peer, or friend outside of work. Third, pause and reflect. Ask yourself, am I struggling because of their teaching style, my own learning curve, or a combination of both? If you determine that your preceptor is not supporting your growth and it's impacting your ability to learn, it's again time for you to advocate for yourself. I also want you to know that your preceptor is likely having private conversations with your manager about your progression. Don't let this make you paranoid, but be aware that managers often trust their preceptor's judgment. If you're behind on expected progress, say you should be managing 3 of 5 patients by now, but you're still at 2, it's worth having a private conversation with your manager about your experience so that you can sort of speak to your experience on your behalf versus having the manager hear everything solely from your preceptor. To prepare for this conversation, keep a private log of dates, specific incidents, and what was said or done that maybe made you feel unsupported. For example, 812. I asked for clarification on a medication dosage. My preceptor said you should already know this in front of the patient. You can keep this in your note section on your phone. Of course, don't add any patient identifying factors because we do not want to break HIPAA. This isn't about building a case, okay? These notes or examples are not about building a case. It's actually just about having clear examples if you need to explain the situation to leadership. Sometimes a preceptor isn't being malicious. They're just not the right teacher and they just aren't teaching in a way that works for you. When you meet with your manager, share where the gaps are and offer possible solutions. Suggest working more with your secondary preceptor to see if it's a better fit, or propose trying different shifts. Each shift has its own workflow and one might be more conducive to learning. In fact, in one of our recent New Nurse Society workshops, Julia, a nurse life coach and mentor in the community, pointed out that night shift can often be a better environment for learning. The workflow is usually more steady and predictable with fewer distractions. There's no visitors, no consults, no multidisciplinary rounds, and very limited testing done on patients on the off shift. That slower pace can give you more time to process what you're learning and develop your critical thinking skills. I also want to add here, if your preceptor's behavior is unsafe, discriminatory, or verbally abusive, do not wait to report it. Go immediately to your manager or your educator. You are entitled to a safe learning environment and also respect while you're at work. Now let's talk about how you can be a great orientee and get the most out of your orientation experience. Your orientation is the time when you're encouraged to ask all the questions, openly share areas that you need to improve, and receive a lot of extra grace. If you don't take advantage of this period of time, you might come off orientation wishing that you were still working alongside your preceptor, especially when you're faced with tasks that you're not fully comfortable with. So while you're on orientation, take the initiative to learn. Look up unfamiliar diagnoses or procedures after your shift so that you can return the next day prepared should you see that again. If another nurse is about to do a skill that you want to improve on, like let's say inserting a Foley catheter, ask your preceptor if you can watch, or better yet, offer to do it yourself. The more you practice, the better you'll get. Ask open-ended questions that invite teaching. For example, how do you approach time management on a busy shift? Instead of, am I doing this right? If something is unclear, follow up with a clarifying question. And remember, your preceptor isn't your only resource. Your unit educator, charge nurse, and other experienced staff have a wealth of knowledge. Even if they're not your preceptor, they might explain something in a way that clicks better for you or give you a different perspective than your primary preceptor. Lastly, show appreciation, okay? Even a small thank you goes a long way, and precepting is a huge undertaking, and acknowledging their effort can strengthen your rapport and make your learning experience even better. Okay, so now that we've kind of touched upon all of these things, let's just say you're at the point where you need to go to your manager and advocate for a new preceptor. I know this can definitely feel uncomfortable, almost like tattling or stirring up drama, but here's the truth. You are in charge of your success. You have to set yourself up for it. Okay. And if you have done everything you can to be a good orientee, you've given it time to adjust, and now you've kind of, I don't want to say collected stories, but you also have maybe a few situations that you can lean on for evidence that maybe this isn't a good match, you and your preceptor. I think now it is time that we go to the manager and we discuss this. Most people don't realize that there's often a window of time when a new hire can be let go, and it's usually tied to an unsuccessful orientation. That's why if you're not where you should be in your orientation and you feel your preceptor is a big reason why, it's so important that you get the courage to speak up. And remember, if you're feeling a mismatch, there's a good chance that your preceptor feels it too. It's not usually one-sided, and having this conversation might actually benefit them as well. Okay, so in order to prepare for this, I want to go through a few steps. First, I want you to initiate the conversation with your manager from a place of gratitude and purpose. I want you to prepare for this conversation and maybe script a bit of the conversation or dialogue so that you have something to kind of lean on or practice before you meet with your manager on this topic. There's definitely a strategic way to address this without causing any future issues or tension with your preceptor. Okay, so first, when you're scripting your conversation, I want you to initiate the conversation with your manager from a place of gratitude and purpose. You could start by saying something like, "Thank you for making time to meet with me. I really value this orientation process, and I want to make sure that I'm set up for success so I can provide safe and quality care." That opening shows that you're coming from a professional and non-malicious place. Next, describe the issue without placing blame. Okay, so here is an example. "I've noticed that I'm having difficulty adapting to my current preceptor's teaching style. I respect their experience, but I'm finding it challenging to learn in a way that I need to in order to meet orientation goals." Then you're going to give a specific example so that your manager can better understand where the mismatch is. For example, "I learn best when I can talk through my thinking process, but I've been finding it hard to get that kind of feedback during working shifts. I worry this may slow down my progression." After sharing one or two examples, come prepared with possible solutions. "I'm wondering if we could try a shift or two with another preceptor to see if a different teaching style helps me progress more quickly. I'm open to suggestions that you think would be best for me." Finally, reaffirm your commitment to the role and your end goal. "My goal is to complete orientation feeling confident and safe in my practice, and I want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to get there." So, as a recap to help you prepare your personalized script, highlighting your concerns for upcoming meetings with your manager, again, start from a place of gratitude and purpose. Then describe your situation without blame, provide a brief example or two, share possible solutions, and then reaffirm your commitment to your success. A few other pointers for having this tough conversation are avoid labels, okay? Like bad preceptor, poor teacher, not helpful, or toxic. Instead, focus your conversation on the fit and your learning needs. This keeps the conversation professional and mature. Next, keep your examples factual and brief. Don't turn this into a venting session because your manager may see this as unproductive and could become more skeptical of your concerns. End your concern by asking for guidance. Managers are more receptive when they feel involved in the solution, and they may have suggestions that you haven't considered or even knew were available. And then take time, like I said, to script a few talking points before your meeting. Coming prepared will help you stay organized, professional, and effective. So, to wrap up today's conversation, remember this: your orientation is the foundation for your nursing practice, and the relationship that you have with your preceptor can make a huge difference in how confident and competent you feel by the end of your orientation. If you're struggling, first give it time. The adjustment period is real for you and your preceptor. Communicate your needs early and clearly, be proactive in your own learning, and use all the resources available on your unit. Watch for red flags that signal a harmful learning environment, and if you see them, advocate for yourself. That means staying professional, documenting concerns, offering solutions, and having a thoughtful, solutions-focused conversation with your manager. At the end of the day, your goal is to finish orientation feeling safe, confident, and ready to care for your patients. And that starts with ensuring you're set up for success from day one. If this episode helped you, inspired you, or gave you something to think about, I would love it if you took a minute to leave a rating and review for the show. It really does help me know that these topics are resonating with you, and it helps other new nurses find this podcast. I'm so grateful you spent part of your day with me, and I can't wait to connect with you in the next episode. As always, I have one hand for me and the other for you. Signing off. Well, that's it for today's episode of Life After Nursing School. I hope you feel more confident and ready to tackle the challenges that come with starting your nursing career. Remember, the first year or two might not be easy, but with the right mindset, you can overcome anything. If you found value in today's episode, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a future episode. Also, please consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. It helps so much in reaching other new nurses like you. Thanks for listening, and remember, you've got this. Take care and see you next time.